Resident Evil VII Biohazard is the video game adaptation of the new, critically acclaimed movie, Resident Evil VI: The Final Chapter. Wait. Resident Evil VII is the newest clone of Outlast. Resident Evil The Biohazard is the newest ripoff of PT, a demo for a cancel. Anyways, the game is about a guy who goes to a creepy house to get his girlfriend back. Can you guess what happens next? Yeah, you can. This is a shooter survival horror adventure game where you have to figure out how to escape the house, except for inscripted parts where the game does it for you. So the main part of the gameplay in this game is exploring this house and some of the surrounding area, and finding items to aid your survival, or ones that help you get to new areas and unlock more stuff. Oftentimes you have to do this while hiding from some sort of enemy, or dealing with other hazards in the environment. You have to figure things out, and I guess it's sort of a puzzle game, but not really, because there aren't many puzzles that are that hard at all. But for me, this was easily the most fun part of the game, is just going around, trying to look at everything that I could, really just taking my time in the game, and finding things and figuring out, ooh, I can use this here, ooh, I got this weapon now, or yes, I finally have the right items to make more ammo, or to make more health kits. And that part of the game feels really good, just being able to take your time to figure out as much of the game as you can, and you feel good when you do it. And the best moment in the entire game was when I figured out that I could get a broken shotgun that I had put somewhere earlier by using a fake model shotgun, and then repairing the broken one to get a better shotgun than the one I had. It sounds confusing, but it was really fun, and I liked how the game rewarded me for just thinking critically about how I could maybe get a better shotgun. This game is a horror game, as I mentioned earlier, and while sneaking around the house there are some very tense moments. I will get more into the horror aspect of the game a bit later. One game mechanic that I really liked is you can find VHS tapes that were recorded by people who were previously in the house. And you get to play through them recording the tape, which gives you hints and tells you how to do things that you will have to do yourself later on in the game. And what I thought was strange is that this is actually very similar to one of my ideas for something to have in the next Infamous game, which I called video logs, and this is basically the same thing. So exploration in this game is great. You feel rewarded for finding special items that will help you survive. And the crafting choices are great. I think that most of the craftable items were equally important, and it was hard to choose which I should craft, and I just had to keep items on me and strategically try to craft what I needed at the moment. But you aren't always constantly just sneaking around. There is combat in this game, most of which consists of fighting the thing from Stranger Things over and over, with different variations of it, of course. Combat is okay. It's kind of clunky and weird. Probably my biggest problem with combat is your movement speed in the game. You move so slow, and when you run like slower than most video game characters would walk. I don't know why it's as slow as it is. It feels very weird to me, and sometimes you just can't move fast enough to dodge an enemy's attack, so they have this blocking system, but it's weird because you still take damage when you block, just not as much. Also, the aiming in the game, something about it just feels weird and clunky, but what made the combat bearable for me, and most of the time decent, was ammo and health kit preservation. You have to really try to get those headshots and try to back up far enough so that you don't get hit, so that you don't have to use health kits constantly. And that made the game tense, even if it did feel a little weird. Something else that I like with the combat is that all of the weapons feel really good to use. Maybe not the pistol you start with, but all of the other ones just feel fantastic to use, especially the shotgun, which is just awesome when you blow an enemy's head off with it. One problem that I do have with the enemies in this game is that, for the most part, they're just the same thing with maybe 3 or 4 variations of them. And it's like that the whole game, and as the game goes on, there's more and more of them, and by the end, I just got bored of them, and they They were sort of scary the first few times you see them, but after that, they aren't scary at all. So this game has some very good non-scripted parts, but then it has some scripted parts, which are really, really bad. Basically, the scripted parts of the game are the opposite of the non-scripted parts. Which sounds obvious, but like, why I hated them was because they weren't what I liked in the game. They were the opposite of what I liked. It's like, here, you have freedom to find all this stuff, but then with the scripted parts, it's like, no, do this now, do this, and feel like you are having no impact on the game. It's horrible, boring, and sometimes extremely frustrating. And at the very start of the game, there is some scripted exploration. That sounds like it's contradicting itself. But what I mean by that is, like, at the start of the game, you walk up to this gate, and I never even tried to open the gate because I wanted to explore the path that was off to the left. But I found out later, if I had tried to open that gate, it just wouldn't work, and I was supposed to go the way on the left. But I was trying to go to the left to find things that might be extra and help me before going through the gate. So that kind of scripted exploration just feels awkward, and I really don't like it. Thankfully, that was mostly just in the start of the game, though. One other problem that I had with the scripted parts is the main character gets injured a bunch in the start of the game, because he's supposed to, and it's in scripted parts. So then once the real game, like, actually started and I was getting injured, at first I thought that it was supposed to happen and that it was scripted, but then I realized that I was just messing up, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what to expect to play right now. Like, am I playing the boring part or the good part? Please tell me, game. Then there are boss fights in this game. None of them are that good at all, but most of them are bearable. One of them is not, though. One of them was incredibly frustrating because it had the problem that I talked about earlier with combat. I would try to run to dodge this guy's attacks, but it just wasn't possible. And I ended up dying on that fight so many times because I had ran out of health kits, and I was on low health at the start of the fight every time, so then I would just go into it and hope for the best, and eventually I beat the boss because of luck. I do not have a problem with difficult things in games, as long as they aren't based on luck. As long as what you do matters, and if you can just get better at the game to overcome it. That was not the case in this horrible boss fight that added at least 1 hour to my total game time. And that was definitely the lowest point in this game for me. Also, one other problem that I have with this game has to do with your inventory. Now, your inventory is pretty small. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's fun to manage it and choose what items you put in storage and which ones you have on you. But my problem is that at the start of the game, it did not make clear to me that I could put items in storage, and then whenever I find other storage boxes, those items will be in those ones too. And since this wasn't made clear to me, I deleted a bunch of items in my inventory at the start of the game that I thought wouldn't be useful. Some of which were antique coins, which you later used to purchase upgrades. I deleted 4 antique coins because I thought that was the only way to play the game, and the game didn't warn me saying, oh, you do realize you can just put these in storage, right? There was nothing like that. It was just, once you delete this, it'll be gone forever, and I'm like, okay, I guess I have no other option. Anyways, that irritated me, but thankfully, this game has many options for upgrading your character, and I didn't feel like I was at that much of a disadvantage because I didn't have 4 coins that I could have used. But still, it was frustrating, and the game should have let me know better, while at the same time not holding my hand, because I hate it when games do that. It just didn't make it clear to me. Anyways, let's talk about the story in this game. The story is alright. I would not recommend playing this game for the story, but there are some good aspects of it, even though in general it's pretty basic and cliche. To me, the situations that the story puts you in were more interesting than the story itself, and the story is for the most part just like cliche horror things put together, and not much is done to set it apart or make it feel special versus other horror stories. And also, I really didn't care much about any of the main characters in the game. Mostly the main character. I just didn't get why I should care about him, like, just because his wife or girlfriend person went missing, I guess. But, like, he gets injured so much, but that has no effect on the gameplay whatsoever, so it's like, how are you supposed to make me care as a player, game? One thing that I did like in the story is there's some parts that I thought were really funny. They totally take away from the horror aspect in those moments, but I thought they were hilarious.
Eat it. It's good.
Dumb son bitch wasn't no good if it hit him.
Yes.
And I loved it. Also, there was one character that I found to be quite interesting, which was Grandma. I love Grandma. She's great. She randomly disappears and then reappears somewhere else, and she does nothing. She just sits in her wheelchair. One thing that sucks with Grandma, though, is you can't aim at her and try to shoot her, which makes no sense. Like, if she's a member of this zombie-ish family, why wouldn't the main character want to take her out or something? It just didn't make sense to me why there's not even a gameplay option to try to shoot her. Alright, now to talk about how scary the story is. For me, the story itself was really not all that scary, mostly because it's just like a bunch of cliches to me, really, and things that just don't scare me because they're so cliche. Even though I'm someone who I don't really think has even seen horror movies, I'm not scared by the cliche, typical horror movie stories, I guess. And in general, I am a complete wimp when it comes to horror things, mostly because of jump scares, and thankfully there are not that many jump scares in this game. They use them sparingly, which is how they should be used, so that when they do happen, you jump and like it's a genuine scare. It's not like a constant BAM! And that stuff just startles you. It doesn't scare you, it just startles you in the moment. Which is why I generally don't like them, and thankfully this game didn't have that many. That being said, I do think this game does have some actually scary moments, but the horror aspect of it really comes from just the gameplay of trying to not get caught and stuff, and that was the scary parts to me, not really the story itself, which was just sort of average and for the most part uninteresting. There's a few good twists, a few interesting parts, but overall it's a pretty uninteresting story. The scariest thing in the game is I hope I have enough ammo and health kits, when the game just puts you on edge because of the gameplay. Speaking of being put on edge, or actually not being put on edge, this game has save rooms where you can save your game, and I really like them because when you go in them you just feel the sense of safety, like nothing can hurt you, and this nice, soft, creepy music plays. Like, it's creepy, but it just feels warm and welcoming, and like you can save, you can choose which items you want to use from your storage, and just plan what you're about to do, in peace. And then this game has multiple endings, and there is a choice related to it. I'm not going to spoil what it is or spoil the story itself, but I think that ending choice was really stupid because I made the choice that logically made the most sense to me, and then the game just basically punished me for making it, and was like, you chose the bad ending. Like, it didn't say that to me, but I knew that I must have chosen the bad ending when horrible things happened. Which didn't really make sense to me, because I made the choice that I thought was the one that would be better for my character surviving. So if the game is going to punish me for making the choice that I thought was best, then why does it even have a choice? Why not just always go with the good ending? Like, there's no point in having player choice when both options seem viable and then one of them just isn't, and the player has no way of really knowing that. Also, at the start of this review, I made fun of this game for being similar to PT and Outlast, and I just want to make clear that that was a joke, and this game's actually not very similar to them at all, because it's not just walking around a house and then you get jump scared every 10 minutes or something. Because there's not many jump scares, and a big portion of the game is fighting. And I have not played PT and Outlast, but they seem like the kind of game I would not like, because they seem to just be walking simulator inside of a dark house, then you get jump scared once in a while, just like I said. And this game was not like that. Anyways, I'm basically done with my review now. One more thing that I just want to mention is the DLC for this game. I have no interest in playing it, and the reason for that is it is coming out already. which means that they made the DLC while they were making the game, which means they cut out these pieces to be DLC out of the main game. Or really what I think the DLC is are parts of the main game that weren't good enough to be in the main game, so they're just releasing them as DLC to make more money off the game, which I think is just stupid. Anyways, overall, Resident Evil 7 is a game that I don't think I would recommend to everyone. If you like exploration and stuff, you will like this game, but you will also hate parts of this game. I enjoyed this game more than I disliked it, and I thought it was overall a good game with some big flaws in it. But yeah, if you like exploration and minor puzzle solving and like creepy atmosphere, then you should play this game. If you don't care for that stuff, then this game probably has nothing for you. Thank you guys for watching my review of Resident Evil 7. Maybe go check it out if it sounds like something you would enjoy, and have a great day.